The Gettysburg Museum of History, located right here in the center of Gettysburg, PA. Owner and curator Eric Dorr grew up here and has spent his life collecting and preserving history through artifacts ranging from the Civil War, the Battle of Gettysburg, World War II, presidential items, pop culture, and more. His museum is free and open to visitors Wednesday through Sunday, 11 to 5 p.m., where you can stop by and immerse yourself in some of the most amazing artifacts that you would never believe exist in the middle of Gettysburg. If you're a fan of Band of Brothers and Everything Easy Company, you'll love his exhibit featuring the Dick Winters collection and artifacts from D-Day. You can even own your own piece of history by buying one of the many relics they have for sale in the museum and on the website gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com. The Gettysburg Museum of History is a non-profit 501c3 organization with a foundation that allows all purchases and donations to keep the museum operating and open free of charge. They have been featured on the History Channel, the Travel Channel, the Smithsonian Channel, and the Science Channel. Now you can check them out on American Artifact, the series on the YouTube channel, The History Underground. So that's the Gettysburg Museum of History at 219 Baltimore Street or the gettysburgmuseumofhistory.com.
From the Gettysburg Museum of History Studios,
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg. It's a special edition of AG today. We are talking with Jason Martz, who is the communications specialist over at Gettysburg National Military Park, and he is here to answer your questions. The phone number that you're going to call if you want to get in the queue and have any questions to ask him, is 717-420-1978. If you're watching live, it is in the description. If you're listening to it afterwards, it's moot because you can't use it because the phone lines will be down by then. Jason, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, sir. Good to be back.
Have you been enjoying the very hot summer that we've been having?
No.
July was a swelterer, as it often is. So, I mean,
I think the older I get, the less I like it. I used to be okay with it.
Yeah.
It's not that I can't handle it. I can handle it just fine. I just choose not to.
Yeah, that's funny you say that because I've had that thought, but I don't want to admit it, that I'm getting old and I can't handle the extremes in weathers. And it stinks because I used to love heat. Like I would just sit in the heat to sweat because I was like, oh, I missed this during the winter. The smells of summer, the sounds of summer, the sights of summer, it's great.
Oh yeah.
And here, Gettysburg is such a beautiful place to come and just sit in sweat in the summer, in the summer sun.
Is.
But I can't do it like I used to.
Yeah. I get myself geared up for July 1, 2, and 3 because I have to. And then after that,
yeah, I know. Give me the AC.
Maybe a little bit more AC rather than that natural.
Yeah, it's funny. I can't believe it because I used to love it, and I complain all winter long that it's cold, and then the summer comes and whatever. But how's the summer been going at Gettysburg National Military Park?
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
no complaints. Have you heard Little Round Top reopened?
I heard that. Yeah. Yes, it reopened just before the anniversary, which was nice.
That was key.
Could you imagine though, if it wasn't able to open until like a week after the anniversaries days?
No, Matt. That wasn't in the cards.
That would have been a nightmare.
We made sure that it was either, prior to July 1 or like 2 years later.
Yeah.
I jest, but no, your scenario would have been worst case.
Oh, it was, yeah, that would have been, because I remember when they closed it, it was right. No, you kept it open for the anniversary days. That's right, you did. It was July 5th is when it closed, if I recall.
No, it didn't close until July 20-something, 26, 27 of 22.
It was no sooner than July 5th, I think was the word that you put out. Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And then you're right, it was later in the month. But, all right, so I've been up there a bunch of times now. It's great to go up and watch the sunset again. I brought my girlfriend Cindy up. I don't know if I told you the story last time you were on the show, but We walk up there, and this was her first time there, so she had no idea what to compare it to. But she thought it was beautiful, and as we were walking up there to the summit, and she got her first view of the valley, she was just like, oh my God, aren't we so lucky to live here?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't know what luck has to do with it. It was not easy to get here. I came here, I failed, I went home with my tail between my legs to New Jersey, I regrouped, and I came back again. So I don't know about luck, but I know what she meant. And it is a beautiful place. And I think you guys did a great job. I'm telling you, the paths are just nicer to walk on. And again, this is another sign of aging. I don't want to twist my ankle. Mm-hmm. I don't want to trip and fall. I don't want to break a hip, anything like that. It's just comfortable to navigate now.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Yeah, I was up there earlier today, late morning, working on a couple things, and I talked to a bunch of visitors just walking around,
Mm-hmm.
asking questions about the battle. Where was so and so? What was this? What was that? But the comments that we get, at least that I've heard, either myself or through other staff members, have been, "Wow, this is great.
Yeah,
this is fantastic." And I went back to our most recent recording from about a month ago, I guess.
I think so. It's early, mid-June.
And one of your comments that was left on your channel was someone who really appreciated being able to get everywhere they wanted to. And hearing those kinds of comments makes us feel really good.
Yeah.
Because how many people couldn't in the past? Well,
and also I noticed the way the pathways are, the aggregate, the color of it and everything like that, it's easier to see where you can go. Like, it's easier to see where trails are. I always knew where the trails were, but to the person who was just, here for the first time or, hasn't been around that much to explore, they didn't stand out very well before because they were just rough ground, you know? But now they really stand out. And so you're like, oh, there's something there. So I think it's cool for that. The one thing I want to ask about is parking. Mm-hmm. Because I've been seeing on Facebook and stuff, people pointing out that people are parking their cars in the bus-only lots. We were talking about it before, and I had to laugh at the fact that a lot of times they're parking in front of sandwich boards that say bus parking only.
Yes.
And you can't tell me that you don't see that, right? I mean, come on. So, the question that people are asking on Facebook, and maybe we can put this to a rest here for them, is, what's that about? If it's bus parking only, why aren't these people getting ticketed, towed, whatever, all these kinds of things that they think should happen? I know I jumped into the fray once and I said, yeah, it's kind of weird that, they're right in front of these signs when they're parking. I was even up there one time and there were 2 law enforcement vehicles there, but nobody was ticketed, nothing like that. So I said, my guess is that it is a grace period because people are used to parking there. And if it's not a heavily trafficked day, then it's like, okay, we can let it go. But then sooner or later, we're going to have to crack down on this. Am I in the ballpark or?
Yes.
Okay.
So to put it as broadly as possible, we are in fact in a grace period. We'll use that term. There is, I think, after basically 23 months of closure, we knew that we were not going to be able to solve every single issue on Little Round Top from prior to the rehab project. And parking was certainly tops among those things. So the vehicle parking on the left there at the summit and the new bus parking there on the right, we knew that this was going to be something that everyone would need to learn to begin to live with.
Okay.
Now, when I was saying earlier that I was up there late this morning and one of our guys was up there ticketing. There was one car that was in the bus area strangely enough, ironically enough, right in front of the
course.
sandwich board that said bus parking only.
Where else would you park?
So he was, in fact, ticketing. So that's a thing. But one of the things that general visitors need to realize is that Gettysburg goes through some very, very distinct seasons, where seasons meaning as far as what vehicles are used to get around the battlefield. During this time of year, there aren't that many buses. The only buses that are typically coming around are the tour buses here locally with the Gettysburg Tour Center.
Right, okay, sure.
There aren't a whole lot of school buses. School's not in session.
Right.
There aren't a whole lot of coach buses coming in. It's too hot.
Right.
But
believe it or not, it's not a very busy time of year right now.
It actually isn't. You're right. But the bus seasons that we do have are extreme.
Yes.
So one season is in the spring with basically March, April, May in that time zone for kids on school trips. Bus after bus after bus of kids all over the country traveling here on school trips. And in many cases, they're either stopping to or on the way back from other places like Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Philadelphia. So we're part of that itinerary. But come back. Anyone who is questioning the whole bus parking scenario that exists up there right now when it's not a busy bus season, come back in the spring. Come back in March, April, May, or come back in right around the October time frame where the colors are changing on the leaves.
Leafers come out.
In this area of the country, come back then. And you will see the other mega bus season. And so when you're here and you're not seeing mega bus season, you're probably going to be confused as to why in the world do we need all of these bus spaces.
Right.
We have to deal with, as the National Park Service, we have to deal with the extremes. And so the worst case scenario is these two big mega bus seasons that are just, there are literally hundreds of buses a day in some cases.
Is the park...
And those are the ones we know about. Never mind the ones that just come into the battlefield.
Right, yeah.
Don't necessarily go through the visitor center. Don't hire a licensed battlefield guide. Don't get tickets to the cyclorama and the movie.
They just come on in.
They just come on in.
Yeah.
So those are the ones we don't know about. So we can easily track the ones that we do know, and even those numbers are ridiculously high. It's great. People come from all over the country, no matter what it is, no matter what their age, no matter their means of transportation, they're coming, and that's wonderful. But again, we have to deal with the extremes, and that's why you see these bus spaces, these dedicated bus spaces. Now, you were talking, are we in a grace period?
Yeah.
Yes, we're in a grace period. Does that necessarily mean that all of those bus spaces are going to remain bus spaces the other, 7-8 months?
Yeah.
That's what we're working on.
So that was my next question. Has there been talk of in the park within the powers that be to consider in the off bus seasons opening some of those up to automobiles, to not automobiles, via cars? Yeah. But that's not definite. We're considered.
It is a consideration. We are considering everything that comes at us because, again, we knew ahead of time that we were not going to be able to, nor did we really try to solve every issue that is Little Round Top in the busiest of seasons, whether that be battle anniversary, whether that be spring bus tour season. We're doing our best.
Right.
But yes, we do need probably a full year to really soak in what these different
that makes sense.
Are gonna,
you got to see. Yeah, you got to see what it's like. How it's used because it's different than it was before. So how does that all work?
Yep.
So
we're watching.
Yeah.
And we're taking everything into consideration moving forward.
The other thing I noticed was that is it done yet? The paving on Culp's Hill, or has it started? I'm so out of it. I don't even know.
It started last week.
Okay.
So we're only not even a week and a half into it yet.
Okay. And how long is that projected to last?
3 months.
3 months.
But it's off and on. There's for instance, there's a week, I think maybe next week or the week after, where they're not working at all. Where subcontractor is already dealing with another job, so we know that they won't be here for the entire week.
So they're doing it in sections.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So
And a lot of it's happening at night.
okay. So it won't even affect, most of the time, it won't even affect things during the day.
Yeah, it's about 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's yet another thing that all of the hand wringing I see online is all for naught.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for naught, but when we have the money, it's just like the paving projects that we had last year. They were going on at the same time that Little Round Top was closed.
Yeah.
Well, how in the world did we not know that this was going to cause issues to the visitor? Of course we did.
Of course. But you got to do it.
But there's money,
Yeah.
and there's a time frame that we have to use it. If we don't use it, we lose it. So that's why these projects have to happen according to certain calendars that we have no control over.
I'll tell you, it's got to be a tough job, just juggling all the stuff that you have to juggle running the park, and then you have to deal with the comments. Not like comments are bad, but like you just have to deal with, I guess, the the people are showing that they don't really understand how it all works, and you have to be polite and answer it. But I know, like, I could never do your job.
It's not your bag.
No,
That's all right.
I could.
That's why I'm here, man.
I mean, I know how to be like, diplomatic and everything. I could do that, but day in and day out, man, you've got some patience on you. I couldn't do that. I mean, superintendent all the way down. I just couldn't do it. Okay, so
You're welcome.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you have to have a good humor about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you also enjoy it. You must.
Yes.
You're not dealing with this type of stuff constantly. It's not like every day.
No, of course not. There's for every negative comment, there's a positive one too.
Yeah.
And for every quasi angry person out there about something, but that's coming from a place of love. When you really think about it.
I agree.
So it's not that we even take that. We don't take that negatively.
Right.
We understand why a given person is coming from a given perspective. There is a connection to this place, unlike any other place in the National Park Service that I've been lucky to at least temporarily work in a lot of different parks across the system over my career. Gettysburg's on a whole other level. So it is something that we understand, because even if you're upset about it's coming from a place that is what's happening. Are you hurting this thing that I love? Are you causing any disrespect to this thing that I love? And in the end, we're not. But if you snap judge, those are the kind. And
I'm glad you said that, because that is what's behind 99% of the negative comments.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I have a negative comment, I know that's what's behind it, is that I don't want things to change. I fell in love with it a certain way. I want it to stay that way. But then the adult in me stops and says, well, why are they doing it? What's their side of the story, number one? And number two, nothing that you've ever loved has stayed the same.
Right.
Nothing, very few things that you've ever loved remain at all. So at least we've got this. At least we're lucky that we have this. Right. And yes, it's changing. And there are some things that, of course, even with all that rationale that I just explained, I'm like, I still don't understand why we need to do that. Like the beavers. I'd love to see them go. But here's my question. So the beaver policy that I'm aware of is that eventually they'll leave. And then I don't know if the dam will be taken down, or if we'll just let it disintegrate on its own, or whatever. But I saw a picture my friend took of a blue heron with a fish in his mouth. So now there's other things that need that habitat there. So it's not just beavers. So if the beavers leave, is the Park Service going to say, well, the pond or the lake or whatever has to stay because of all this other wildlife.
No, beavers are known as what's known as a keystone species.
Okay.
In animal world, biology
Parlance.
world. Yeah, that's admittedly that's outside my wheelhouse.
Me too.
But what they do is because of them being known as a keystone species, what that means is they create a mini habitat wherever they go. So in this particular case, they have created a pond in the Plum Run Valley at the base of Little Round Top, and they've created a multitude of different dams farther downstream. But the big one is upstream near the intersection of Wheatfield and Crawford Avenues.
The God Dam, if you will.
I've never heard it that way.
It just came to me.
It did. Okay. Yeah. Well, or take credit for it now. Copyright it now before somebody gets a T-shirt on that one.
Yeah, I better trademark that.
Trademark it now. But what they do is that's just their thing. They're doing what that species does, but as they do it, other wildlife moves in. But they weren't there before the beavers were there, and if the beavers leave and that habitat kind of washes away and kind of disintegrates, the wildlife goes
away too.
Goes back.
The fish will go downstream. The birds will fly elsewhere.
Everything basically would revert to, in time, the way it was.
Okay. All right. So really then the key is we just got to wait for those beavers to get the hell out of there. To pound sand, if you will.
Pound sand.
Yeah. Okay. Now, permitting. We talked about permitting last time. I'm assuming that hasn't eased up. That's probably still.
Well, we have a lot of permits.
Yeah.
All the time.
I know. Lots of permits. It is a big undertaking, the permitting thing.
This is one of those hidden things that national parks have to deal with.
Right.
That probably goes under the radar more so than anything else.
What do you mean by under the radar? Like
so
in the public's mindset, or
yeah. So if you were the average visitor coming to Gettysburg, would you think that if you wanted to put on a demonstration, if you wanted to have a celebration, if you wanted to have something, and this would be a great setting to have whatever that is. Well, let's just do it.
It depends on what you're talking about, though.
But you'd be surprised at how many.
Like,
people.
give me. Don't give me an example of people that actually do, but like, make up a hypothetical. Like when you say, okay, I'll put it like this. In my mind, to do a tour on a battlefield where tours are done, and to need a separate permit, doesn't compute with me. I know for in our case, we don't need the permit for the tour. We need the permit for the use of the land. So I understand that that's what that is, but I just can't make it jive because though it may be on the books, I've never in my experience heard of anybody having to do that until recently. And so again, this is that whole, what are you doing to what I love thing, right?
Sure.
Because my whole 30 years coming here, we never had to do that. Now all of a sudden we have to do that. It's like, what are you doing to what I love? But then you look and you see, the regulation was written in
1906 or something.
Yeah, right.
Like that. No, it really comes down to the ability to actually be true to the policy and be true to the policy as it affects a given park. Okay. So for instance, if you were to go to XYZ park in somewhere else USA, and it's one of the parks that maybe doesn't get the visitation that a Gettysburg gets, they probably don't have that many permit issues because no one goes there to want to do or need to do a permitted activity. Now, on the other extreme, so there's like the hardly any permits a year park versus, let's say, the National Mall.
Yeah.
America's Front Yard.
Sure.
Their permit office, and I worked there for about 10 years. back in the day. When I left there, I think their permit office had no less than 6 people. And we have one.
Right.
We have one person.
Yeah.
So you go from a park situation that maybe has no permits a year or maybe just a handful to a park like Gettysburg that has a lot, but maybe not as much as you might think of in a place like the National Mall, a place like.
But it's up there though it's a symbolic place.
It is. But it's certainly not as busy as a National Mall, but it's way busier as far as permits.
Well, and as far as Civil War battlefields go, right? It's got to be or Civil War parks.
Yeah.
Let me push back on that though a little bit. So you point out that the National Mall has 6 people to handle permitting, and we have 1.
That's when I was there. 20 years ago.
So what do you think? It's more or less now?
It potentially. I would
probably.
I would say it's probably more.
Probably more. Okay. All right. So they've got more than 6 people to deal with their permitting, and then we have 1. Mm-hmm. Okay. Though the regulation has been on the books, the enforcement of these things is new, or however you want to call it, a resurgence of enforcement or whatever, but it's new to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I've been coming here about 30 years. It's new to me. Mm-hmm. If we've got only one person to deal with it, and it's got to be overwhelming for that one person.
Can be.
Is the park not the headache that's causing for that one person and the strain it's putting on everybody? Is the park not kind of bringing all the negativity on itself by maybe being a little heavy-handed in the enforcement of these permits?
And by heavy-handed, you mean that we're actually enforcing things?
Yes. No. I mean, for example,
because I think, Matt, to some degree, that's at the core of what's happening. Is
absolutely
that these rules and regulations have been in the book since '06, right?
Right.
Whether or not there's a person or anybody, period, even if it's a part-time or what we call a collateral duty, if there's no one to do the paperwork, if there's no one to follow through from start to finish with the permit process, and it's a process, because we also want you to be able to have the event or the thing that you intend on doing, but we also want to meet you halfway so that under the rules and regs and the policies of the federal government over here, and what you want to do over here, we got to find that happy middle ground. If there's no one to do that process and you just do it and nothing happens, no park service, no staff really has any contact with you one way or the other, you go on about your business.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
That doesn't mean it was right.
No.
We just didn't have, in that case, the staff to see that process through. And we have that now.
Right.
And we've had that for at least maybe 2 or 3 years, I think. Maybe a little bit longer. But
I think a little longer.
That's really what it comes down to. It's not that the rules are new.
No, and then
the rules are old.
But that's not the argument though that I'm making. I mean, to me, it feels like flipping a light switch, expecting society to change like flipping a light switch. You know, yesterday this was your park. And you could come and, you know, if you wanted a group of people to take a tour and hire a guide, you can do it. And nobody batted an eye. Tomorrow or today, everybody needs to come into compliance with all these regulations that nobody's ever heard of immediately. There's no grace period. It's grace period for parking. There's no grace period for you need to come into compliance with this stuff. We'll give you till the end of your season or whatever the case may be, right? In my case, there to be the end of the season would have been nice. Instead, the whole season is basically dead unless I can get September and October permitted. So I guess that's when I say heavy-handed. I think that's what I mean. It's not that it's being enforced. if you got to enforce it, you got to enforce it. It's the way I think it's being enforced that has really ticked off a lot of people, and a lot of people who consider themselves strong supporters of Gettysburg National Military Park and the staff, and not that anybody deserves special treatment, but blanketed. It must be easier for Pam to handle all of the permits if there was a little more of a grace period.
So the grace period, there actually was a full grace period. This was years ago.
Oh, okay. You mean when you mean years ago? Do you mean like a few years ago, or do you mean like the decades when they weren't being enforced?
Like a few years ago.
Okay.
A few years ago, and I think this was targeted more to the really big events.
Yeah, sure.
That would involve not just two or three
hundreds of people,
but hundreds, maybe even thousands of people, as far as having an event that was typically held in the park. This is how we always did it. One of those. I think in the case of the new technology, which is maybe where you're coming from, we as an entity are admittedly a bit behind the times.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a whole separate issue. The film permits you're talking about? Yeah. No, I know. And
the times are going faster than the policy.
And I think that is going to be addressed in due time. I know that there's something going through Congress now to update all of that stuff. And I had about an hour phone call with two staffers from the congressman's office who sponsored this bill. And I asked them specifically about the filming permits, not so much special use. I mean, the special use permits, you got to protect the ground. Right. You have to protect everything, right?
Right.
So I understand that. But the filming permits, they said that there are a lot of concerns that they have about the way the regulation is now, because it was written pre-internet and pre-cell phone cameras and pre-YouTube and all this stuff. And it's trying to make 2024 fit into 1964 or 70, whenever it was written. And it's just, it doesn't work.
Right.
And I think that's the friction that it's causing. And also it's unenforceable because, I mean, an 8th grader on a field trip can have a monetized YouTube account, and maybe this is too libertarian of me, but my thing is, if you can't enforce it on everybody, then don't enforce it at all, but, we all know government doesn't work that way.
But I will say this, is that we understand the plight, we understand the issue, and I think we would be as happy as you guys would be if there was a policy that everyone could follow, something that was at least sort of kind of up to date.
And maybe you don't have the answer to this one, and it's unfair to me to ask, but my question is, what was it that in previous years enabled people to just go and do that? And I mean, the law was still there, right? So it's the choice to enforce it. That's really the difference. It's not the enforcement of it. It's the choice to enforce it in such a heavy-handed way. And the other thing I wanted to say before I forget is, you said that there was a grace period on these things. But when I think of a grace period, I think we're notifying you that there is this change effective such and such a date. Between now and then, you've got this grace period to get your mind used to that idea. We, as far as I'm aware, we didn't have that.
When you say we, who is
the public? The public, people who want to hold an event like a tour, or now I understand, if you want to have a demonstration, those can get violent, and so there's things you have to do to protect people there, and so you've got to get the free speech cage, I call it, out. And that, I understand the permitting for that, right? Because you need law enforcement, they can get heated, things like that. Again, I even understand the special use permit for an 80 to 100 person tour. Like, okay, fine. You don't want people, traipsing all over and destroying, climbing trees and, acting like complete idiots. I get that. But I think the filming permit, to me, kind of steps into a different territory, that I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right. And
we know.
Yeah.
Matt, we know.
I know. It doesn't sit right with many people.
Yeah.
But many people scoff at it. They scoff at it. They just go and do it anyway, And then there's me trying to be the good neighbor, and then I'm, losing business because of it. So it does kind of stink. But that's not your job to debate all that stuff anyway. But it does give me insight into at least how the park views it, and it is good to just ask these questions, because I know that these are things that I'm hearing from people. I know I see other people discussing them online, and I do try to be fair. I try to get both sides of the story, and being that I'm living one side, I'm not just observing this from afar. Like, I'm living one side of it, but I'm trying to understand the other side, because I can't stand people who can't see past the nose on their face, and I don't want to be that guy. But God, it really sticks in my craw sometimes. Let's see if we.
And I'm here when you need to get that off your chest.
And I appreciate that. This is actually more like a therapy session for me.
I don't know if there's no couch.
It's not informative for the audience, but I feel better.
I have a notebook, but there's no couch.
Let's see. We've got a caller here. This is our friend 6 Questions Lens, calling about the ambassador program.
Yeah.
Okay, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the ambassador program. I mean, the opening of the structures with volunteers for the visitors to the park to go inside these structures when they normally don't get to. What has been the reception to that program? And overall, are there plans to continue moving it forward?
Yeah, what you're talking about is the Battlefield Ambassador Program. That started just this year, I think, maybe in the springtime, but definitely for the summer. And what it's done is we have some fantastic volunteers that are
our friend Debbie is one of them.
Incredibly dedicated. Couldn't do some of the stuff that we do at the park without them. This is giving an opportunity for them to step outside, let's say the Museum and Visitor Center there at the information desk, and go interact with visitors on the battlefield at a structure, one of the houses, Leicester House, Bryan House, Warfield House, and interact with visitors directly. And it's gone fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, they love it, and we love that they love it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the public loves it, that they love it, and we love it.
A lot of love going around.
It's
a love fest.
So, but the Battlefield Ambassador Program, I think, has absolutely found a place. And as long as we have volunteers to operate it, it is kind of on their schedule. So there is no schedule per se to say that a battlefield ambassador is going to be at such and such house from such and such time to such and such time. It's kind of on a. It can't possibly be on a schedule like that.
Right.
But no, it's gone fantastically. It's been incredibly well received. The volunteers love it. The public loves it, and we're excited to be able to offer these things, these what almost seems to be like behind the scenes elements, and bring it out, because there's these fantastic resources, and if the doors are locked, all you can do is look in the windows, and that's
you
nice.
Don't really see much. Yeah.
So if you get to go inside, it's amazing.
It is amazing, and to go into, like, say, the Bryan House or the Leicester House, and to imagine how many kids did Bryan have?
How many did you have? I don't know that for sure.
But
I said I don't know.
Well, it was a lot, though, right?
He had quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had quite a few.
I mean, maybe he built an extra room on or something eventually, but like just the thought of raising a family, the thought of living with one other person in a house that size is just really hard for me to wrap my head around, right? But you don't get that until you stand in it. Like you say, you can look in the windows, but that doesn't give you a sense of anything. You have to be in the space and have it surround you. Go ahead, Mike.
Or how about the Council of War on July 2nd, 1863?
Yeah.
Standing in that room with that many general officers, and you wouldn't think they'd be able to fit, but then you realize, they could. With how tall they were, how big they were. Yeah, that was possible.
It's a good
to
point.
Fit in that room, but it was really cool to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is, Yeah, that is a good point there, because that's the other thing. When you go to the Leicester House, you try to imagine that Council of War, and almost in the movie, I know they didn't shoot it in the Leicester House, but in the movie they make it look bigger. Mm-hmm. It looks like there's a lot more space in that place, but there wasn't at all.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mike?
No, that's all. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. If you want to call in, ladies and gentlemen, it's 717-420-1978. So there was another question I had about the ambassador program. So remember a while ago there was what we call the, what the hell was it called? Adopted Position Program, right? I loved this. That was a great idea. They did away with it right before or right during COVID?
I want to say right before.
Yeah, I feel like it had nothing to do with COVID. But
I don't think so, but
yeah.
I think COVID
definitely killed it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, I think as we were coming out of the lockdowns, I think we were told that won't be coming back. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were disappointed. We had 3 monuments. Well, not monuments. It's the areas around the monuments that you had. And I thought that was such a great way to help keep the park looking nice, keeping it clean, without having to have the staff to do it, because, I mean, again, we love this place. So we'll happily, those of us who won't do yard work at our own homes would happily come out here and clear an area or something, because it's Gettysburg.
Love.
It is love. And it's, I don't know what it says about what you think about your home, but whatever. My point is that people love it. Now, the ambassador program I'm sure that was around back then, though, right? That's not a new program. It's just kind of
the Battlefield Ambassador program, being able to open up some of the structures. That's new for me.
It is. Okay. So when you had doors open,
yeah,
that would have not been volunteers, or
no? They were there to help as well.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. We just didn't have it. This is basically doors open as often as we can. As long as there's a volunteer, there's gonna
be a door open,
a kind of a door open. Yeah,
I like that too, because once a year is cool, but if you miss that weekend, then you got to wait another year.
Right.
So that you do it often, and people want to go into these buildings,
of course.
Yeah, but now, so is there anything that the park is thinking of as far as volunteerism goes to help clear things? I think before we had talked about where you'll just have like volunteer day. And we're all gonna take care of this area, and then that's what we go and do. Is that still the plan?
Details are still being worked out, but that's kind of along that line. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, if there's an area of the battlefield that's getting overgrown, let's say the slaughter pen is a good example. You can't have 5 people go in there, 10 people go in there, and really make much of a dent into an area that requires that much work.
A lot of cracks.
You really need, 75, 100, a big substantial number to go in. Everybody from the park who needs to be involved is going to be there. All the equipment's going to be there. All the safety stuff is going to be there. Let's say we need to remove a lot of underbrush.
Right.
Well, the trucks are going to be there. The mulcher's going to be there.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to descend onto this one space, and we're going to get it done that day.
Right. I think that's way more effective.
And it's efficient.
Yeah.
It's very efficient as far as staff is concerned, safety is concerned, the equipment that's necessary. Everyone's on the same page, and everyone rallies to this one place. And it could be at Eisenhower as well. It doesn't just start and stop at Gettysburg. It also goes over to Eisenhower.
And it's fun. I did it a few years ago down around Devil's Den. And I mean, we were ripping stuff out all day and, throwing it in the chopper, and it was fun. It's fun. You get together, of course, some of the people that are there, other people you don't know. Mm-hmm. You get together, you're working on this place that you love to work on. And it's a cool experience to have with, these other people. I don't mean to sound all kumbaya, but it was nice. It was nice, and I like it. I would do it again. Are there any coming up before the winter comes on that you know of?
Yes, and I can't remember exactly what the day is called. I want to say it's
Well, you got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
National Trails Day, I think.
Okay.
I think that's coming up in September.
Okay.
But I'm not sure.
All right.
But we did hire a dedicated volunteer coordinator, which is someone who is going. She's already had a lot of volunteer experience, and she's
maybe I should have her on the show too.
She's worked at both parks, Gettysburg and Eisenhower, so she's very familiar with both parks, and she's gung-ho. She's ready to go, and it's just a matter of kind of getting everything squared away at the base level. We have to have a foundation and and the framework built before we can actually put the fancy carpet and toilets and stuff like that.
People don't understand that you have a good idea, you get excited, you want to do it.
Jump right in.
But you can't jump right in.
Can't jump right in
because that's when you fall on your face. Indeed. You got to have the framework. And then you ruin a good thing potentially. Not sometimes people have luck, but never in my experience.
Yeah. So I think we're going to be working on some things throughout the rest of the calendar year, and I think 2025 is the year where I think we're really eyeing getting all of this out to the public. Obviously to be determined, but I think that's the goal. And to turn 2025 into the volunteer year, getting these projects done that everyone's been craving to work on.
So, and I do look forward to getting back to doing that, actually. All right. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? Anything that you came...
Yeah, one of the big events of the year is coming. It's coming up September 20th, 21st, and 22nd.
Sounds right.
And this is the World War II weekend at Eisenhower National Historic Site.
Big weekend.
It is a big weekend. It is actually the second biggest event of Gettysburg and Eisenhower, with battle anniversary being the busiest of the bunch. But this is fully squarely in second. Yeah. And as far as impact, as far as programming that takes place, and certainly the amount of people that it draws, certainly to Eisenhower. And there are hundreds of living historians that come out for this. And the topic this year, as it's been the past couple years, we've been following basically the 80th anniversary of 1942, 1943, 1944. So this is 1944. So we're talking about a lot of the invasion,
today,
really fighting off and driving into Germany and defeating fascism. So there's a lot of really great programming that is being planned.
Okay.
Yeah. Kids programs. What we started last year and why we didn't do this before, I don't know, but everyone is so coordinated and everyone's on the same page, not just staff, but the volunteers, the living history folks, that we started for the first time camp tours of the living history camp. And we would go around to a couple of the folks, a couple of the groups that bought in to this idea with us. And we're taking that, which were incredibly popular last year, and making that even more substantial this year, and really getting a lot of the camp living history groups involved. There's going to be a kids activity that is linked to Eisenhower as a 5-star general. Authors are coming, speakers are coming, just all kinds, and special programming in the National Cemetery as well, because of course, as a national cemetery, not just Civil War dead are buried in the Gettysburg National Cemetery, but also World War II.
I was just out there not too long ago, and I'd every time I've been there before, I've never parked in the gravel lot, you know, and so this time I did, and we walked up to the house, and as soon as I got on that path, it was like walking on a cloud. My back pain went away. I want the world paved and whatever that is. That like tires? What is that stuff?
Yeah, it's old.
Is that what it is?
It's old chopped up tire.
Man, why didn't they do that on Little Round Top?
We talked about it.
Did you?
We did talk about it.
Oh man, that would have been.
It's called rainbow turf.
Yeah.
And it can be basically dyed in any color you want to. We didn't feel like that was natural on Little Round Top.
No, it looks a little weird, but it's really nice
Comfy
to walk
underfoot,
on.
though.
Oh my God, it's the best.
Comfy
I
underfoot.
want to make shoes out of that stuff.
I think
I
I
guess they do,
I think
but-
a lot of sidewalks maybe, or roads.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great just about anywhere, to be honest with you. I think a lot more people would walk. We'd have a healthier nation if we just paved all of our sidewalks with that stuff.
Or at least had lanes.
Yeah,
You know,
right,
a lane,
okay.
A lane down the middle or off to
I
the
could live with
side.
that. I could live with that. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, 717-420-1978 if you want to call, go ahead.
You work on that, Matt,
I will.
in your spare time.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. In my spare time. Let's see here. Do we want to see what people say? Oh, yep. Okay. Here's Debbie. She's one of the ambassadors. She says, I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say they are excited the houses are open because they've never seen them open and always wish they could go in. So there you go. There's one person.
Thank you,
there.
Debbie.
Abraham Bryan had 5 children in his family at the time of the battle. Estella says, how will we know when these events will be happening? I'm not sure which one she's talking about there. Probably the World War II events. Do you have a schedule of that weekend yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
But there is information on the Eisenhower National Historic Site about World War II weekend. And there's also an incredible amount of information on the videos page on the Eisenhower website, talking about all kinds of World War II Ike-related topics and conversations that have been had with subject matter experts outside the parks. If you're really interested in World War II and Ike and this time frame in American history, definitely you want to check out the Eisenhower video page.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of sub pages there with videos that are broken down by topics and guest speakers and things of that nature.
So here's one. When we were talking about permits, the comment section was really lighting up.
Sure.
This is what people are saying, okay? All right, Jason?
Go for it.
Matt, you're so handsome. No, nobody said that. One comment here from Bill says, just the government sticking their hands in your wallet as always. Another one says, when you handcuff those creators, you handcuff everyone who is trying to watch things about Gettysburg that cannot get there. What do you say to that, though? There is an issue of people who are, for whatever reason, distance or ability, can't ever get here. Mm-hmm. And creators like me and plenty of others who, go around the battlefield and show people stuff are really, you should see the comments that we get from people about how much what we do matters to them. Mm-hmm. And what's the Park Service's answer to that? Is it too bad, so sad? Or like what is the answer to that?
I think it's a scenario where we completely understand. Mm-hmm. Because of the love of the place that we were talking, as we've been talking so far today. And we know for full well that there are people out there who wish they could get here and may never get here. Mm-hmm. The next best thing is something virtual, be it live, be it recorded, whatever the case is. And it really just does come down to how does the policy finally catch up with all the technology, and it's these are things that I wish we had more control over, but we don't.
Yeah.
And if I right here in front of handsome Matt could snap my fingers and fix this, mm-hmm. we would, because we get that, we understand the love, we understand the dedication, and the desire of the public that is really an insatiable appetite for more content, more information, more people, more personalities, to get this information out there to everybody. And as soon as those policies get fixed and get caught up, then to some degree, I don't know if there's really anything we can do about it. And
about
the policies.
Well, you don't have to enforce them.
Well, we kind of do.
No, you don't.
You do, man.
They haven't been enforced for forever. How about this one? Shoot, I lost my question there. Somebody said something in here, and it reminded me of something else. Anyway, so you were talking about, people not being able to get, yes, that's what it was. Okay. My question on the filming permit thing, and then I'm leaving this alone, okay? Because I submitted this in writing. I just haven't gotten an answer yet. And maybe you know the answer. Is it motion picture that's the problem? And here's why. As I understand it, the sticking points of the regulation that I keep hearing come back to me are intent to generate revenue, that phrase, and also equipment, tripods, things like that. Not too long after this all started, I was driving on the battlefield and I saw two people with easels painting a scene. Mm-hmm. Okay. You can't tell me that artists don't intend to generate revenue, and they have an easel, which is a tripod. So my question is, what exactly is the problem? Is it a moving picture with words, or is it an image of the battlefield in still or in motion? What is the intent? See what I'm saying? It's very confusing. And then how about nature photographers? You have to have a tripod for that. You're a photographer, right? You have a long lens. You have to keep it still. You need a tripod for that. Mm-hmm. You think people wouldn't buy books about nature photography and calendars and other things like that? So my question is, why is it only moving pictures that are being seemingly singled out here? And I don't know if you know the answer, but...
The questions are fantastic.
Thank you.
And no, I don't have an answer. But your points are well taken. It's the environment that we live in that involves all of the things that you just spoke about. The policies don't address any of that.
Right.
And
but they don't even address really.
No, they don't.
They don't address this. They don't address YouTube. There's something somebody mentioned in here, the Chevron. He says deference, but is it defense? It says the agencies can't. They have no authority to interpret the law beyond the text from when it was written or something like that. I don't. Dragoon, explain it in better terms, please. But as I understand it, it's they couldn't foresee the future, so they didn't know about YouTube and all this stuff when they wrote the law, and therefore that doesn't apply to the law or the regulate, whatever it may be. Do you know about that at all, or does that have?
I think you're spot on, though. It's when was the law? When were these policies written, and what existed at that time?
Okay,
there would have been traditional media, and there would have been Hollywood.
Yeah, right.
What else would there have been?
And they leave a heavy footprint.
Yes.
They need trucks. They need crew. I mean, it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a cell phone.
It's not. It's not. When you can take all of that stuff, that massive footprint, and hold it in your hand.
Yeah.
Policy wasn't.
It makes sense.
It's not malleable enough.
Right.
To work with modern.
Which is why I think they're honing in on intent to generate revenue. But intent to generate revenue, I mean, how do people eat? Everybody has to generate revenue somehow, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know. And obviously, you and I are not legal scholars, and we're not going to figure this out here today. And it's not. I'm not holding you accountable for any of this stuff. I just want to understand everything that's going on. But also, you're kind of like the Karine Jean-Pierre of the Park Service. You're the press secretary for all intents and purposes. So I get to badger you like the press corps does to her.
I've never thought of it that way. At least, yeah.
Right? I mean, you're the press guy.
At least for the two Gettysburg parks, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I like? Speaking of the two Gettysburg parks, I like how Gettysburg National Military Park really seems to be promoting the Eisenhower because I don't always remember that. I know, I remember like those shuttles going over there and everything like that, but I never heard military park people really pushing Eisenhower like they have been in the last couple of years. And I think that's great because the Eisenhower is first of all, if you've never been there, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to go check it out. It's beautiful. And beyond its beauty, the view and everything like that, it's just really a cool place to see. I don't know, where a president lived. And it reminds me of my grandparents' house.
It should.
Yeah. Because
it's that era.
Yeah. And it's really a neat place to go. So if you get a chance, go. But I do like to see that the two parks are more cognizant of each other and working together.
Yeah.
Because I think I kind of see them both as very important to the history of this place.
The one thing that I think used to be a bit of a barrier, not necessarily for park staff, but for visitors, was the fact that they had to take a shuttle bus.
Yes.
And
I'll tell you, it was a barrier for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once, and that basically was just simply the contract ended. It was let's say a 10-year contract, and the 10 years was up. And we all knew going into the end of that contract that it wasn't going to get renewed because we wanted to take that barrier away.
Right.
But when we took the barrier away, we had to create somewhere for everyone to park, and that's where that gravel lot that you mentioned earlier. So we found a good place to put it. It was already to some degree existing as an employee lot, but it was really small. It was a postage stamp compared to where it is now, and we increased the size of that parking space. And it became so popular, we had to expand it a second time. Mm. So that should tell you something about how
much people wanted to go there.
How many people really wanted to go there, but didn't want to take the time or the effort to go through the shuttle bus process and kind of be bound by those times.
Stuck with all the strangers in a bus.
Right.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. Everybody's sweating.
But when we took that barrier away and we created the gravel parking lot, it was like a magnet, and people have been loving it, absolutely loving it.
There's a lot to love.
You're talking about the Battlefield Ambassador program with opening some of the battlefield houses. Think of the Eisenhower home as one of those doors open locations that's open on a pretty consistent basis.
All the time, yeah.
And now you can just drive over there, and if you are coming to Gettysburg and you haven't been to Eisenhower, you can really incorporate it into your tour of the battlefield. When you get down to the southern end of the battlefield, just kick off a little bit down the Emmitsburg Road, turn right, and you're right there.
Yeah.
Heading down the farm lane into Eisenhower National Historic Site. Take an hour. Take 2 hours.
It really is just one of the more scenic spots in this whole area. But that's on purpose. Like, they bought up farmland around. Was it the Eisenhowers themselves or the government that bought up the farmland?
Eisenhowers.
The Eisenhowers.
Yep.
Wow. So that's the other thing. I never realized just how huge it is, because when you come in that driveway, and I've seen it. I just didn't know it was part of their farm. That there's those other houses, which I guess are the park offices.
One of the buildings would have been the old caretaker's house.
Okay.
And that's the park headquarters for the staff at Eisenhower. Yeah, that's where their offices are located.
And so there's just it's really huge and really cool. And so definitely
to think that the Secret Service used to be there as well.
Yeah.
And some of the technologies that they had at their disposal back in those days, being able to compare and contrast then and now is fascinating.
It is. The Secret Service office is pretty cool to go look in, because that's what we were doing. We were like, oh, look, they had a hot plate. And a percolator.
It's like, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the Cold War movies of the guys with, they have to.
Oh yeah, the flipping and cranking and
flip the switches to launch the nuclear bombs. It's like some of those consoles.
Really cool old radio stuff.
Came right out of that. That Secret Service office.
I really thought that was fascinating stuff. All right. So let me see. No more calls, and no, Dragoon never answered me with clarification. So there we go. All right, that's it. Debbie says, I just saw Debbie. Where'd she go? She goes, I'm loving how much Eisenhower is being promoted as well. It's fantastic to see the two working together so much more. That is good. All right. That's it for us, right? You have anything else?
I think I'm good, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mike. 6 Questions Lens, for the call. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. Sorry I didn't get to read all of them, but there's a lot to read, and I'm illiterate, so a lot of people don't know that, but probably nobody's surprised. Jason, thank you very much for coming. I hope I didn't hold your feet to the fire too much.
No more than usual.
Okay, good.
No more than usual.
Good. All right.
Do I get to come back?
Of course.
I get to come back.
My question is, after this, are you allowed to come back?
My God.
Have I asked too many questions? That's what I want to know.
No, I don't think
All right,
so.
good.
I think this being able to come over here on your show, whenever that comes to pass, is beneficial for us at the park.
I hope so.
We really want to get away from rumors and hearsay, and if this is an avenue to help clarify some of these things, even if the answers aren't ones maybe folks want to hear, at least for now, it's
Listen,
legit, it's true.
As long as I can ask questions,
you're getting it right from the horse's mouth.
As long as I can ask questions you may not want to hear, you can say whatever the public doesn't want to hear on the show. Okay,
fantastic.
that's
We're
our
square.
covenant. And before we say goodbye, I just want to say thank you to Daniel Harmon in the back there. Dan, you can pull that microphone down and say hi to everybody. You might recognize that last name.
Hello.
His dad is Troy Harmon, and he's the ranger here. And Daniel is very interested in all this stuff here that we're doing, and more on the tech side, right, Dan?
That's correct.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you're away at school. Where do you go to school?
Liberty University.
Liberty University. So you're away at school, and you can't be here during the year to engineer in the back. But I saw the camera going back and forth, flipping all over the place. That's the way it goes, baby. That's the way it goes. Good job with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. Jason, thank you very much.
Very welcome.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching and listening. And we will talk to you all next time.